Okay, we're going to get to the day text now. So let me go ahead. Good morning, Benzie Roy. Thanks for joining me. Let me set this up here. We'll go ahead and get to the text. Okay. So hopefully, whoever you got that information on the Saturday show, as I'll be starting the day text here in just a moment. Welcome to Day Text with Greg Stafford. We meet every morning and discuss a portion of the Bible or other related literature so that we can start our day off right and praise Jah. We're Christian witnesses of Jah, so we believe that Jah is the true God, that Jesus is the Messiah who came in his name, and that he taught us how we should worship Jah and treat others. We're reading day texts, going through the Bible. We started these day text videos while I was in the middle of the book of Philippians. So I just picked it up from there, and we'll move forward and reset once we finish with the book of Revelation. Go back to Genesis and start over and cover the ground that we haven't done as part of these videos. So let me go ahead and read today's text. It's from Philippians chapter 4, and I'm going to read verses 10 through 15. And there Paul writes, "Now I rejoice greatly before the Lord, because at long last you restored your concern for me, which concern you had in mind for me previously, but you did not receive the opportunity to express it. Yet I am not speaking with reference to my urgent need, since I learned with what things I am to be satisfied. I have even known what it means to be poor. I have known also what it means to be rich. In every way and in all things I have learned the secret of how to be satisfied and how to hunger, even how to be rich and how to be poor. I can endure all things by means of the one who makes me strong. However, you did very well in helping with my distressing condition. But, Philippians, even you have come to know that during the beginning of the great message, when I came from Macedonia, not one gathering of Christians contributed to a thought of giving and receiving, except you alone." Might seem a little surprising to hear that, right? I mean, we often think of the New Testament period and the early Christians as a group of people, obviously, who were committed and accepted Jesus, but who were working together to try to build up the Christian association and brotherhood. But that's not always the case. We have references also in Revelation where Jesus speaks to the various congregations, and he doesn't speak to all of them approvingly. So, the Christians that Paul had to deal with were not always receiving of him. He makes that very plain here in highlighting the Philippians' generosity, but it's a little bit, I don't want to say shocking, but it's surprising. I agree, at least to me, that not one gathering of Christians contributed to helping Paul. Now, maybe we might still have had some people who were not quite, sure of what to make of Paul. This is someone who at one time was persecuting the Christians. Now he repented and he confessed of his mistakes and he had a change of heart, but we don't know to what extent everybody was prepared to accept him. So that should be kept in mind. But regardless of how other Christians act, we should try to be the best we can be regardless of how other people choose to live their lives. It's easier when we have others around us who are working together and we're on the same page as far as what our goals are, spiritual goals. But we're not always going to have people around us who share our goals, even when it comes to proclaiming Christ Jesus. And so that shouldn't surprise us to the point where we become depressed or stumbled. We're following Jesus. We're doing the things he told us to do because we accept him as the Messiah, the fulfillment of the law of Moses, the one who came in Jah's name, God's Son. anyone else who has a hard time with those same things or who stumbles, if we can help them, then obviously we try to encourage people who are having difficulty. But if they're not going to respond, if they're not going to be involved in the work that we're called to do, then our time with those people, should be limited, unless we have some special reason or need to help that person or people. Because the focus should be on Christ and those who have not yet heard or accepted the message. And if our conditions become such that we are rich or we are poor, we do well to keep in mind what Paul says. We have to understand what it means to be poor, what it means to be rich. What it means to be rich in this world is to have a lot of possessions, monetary authority, and in those ways people position each other relative to how much they have in a material sense. But really, what makes us valuable is our spiritual worth. And so that's not always something we can show other people. They're not going to be as impressed as we are with treating others the way we want to be treated, praising Jah, and establishing the history of Jesus. They might respect that, but material wealth most of the time is going to impress people over and against demonstrating moral behavior, at least in this world. Not always, but material wealth has certainly become the prize that most people seek after. So whether we're rich or whether we're poor, our focus should be the same. Because if our focus changes simply because of our circumstances, well, then maybe our focus was circumstantially based. Now, that doesn't mean that times when we're facing difficulty will challenge us or cause difficulty for what we're trying to accomplish. But it should be difficult then, right? We should be struggling, not surrendering to the limited role that our conditions might put us in if we find that we're not as rich or we're losing our wealth because of the world or because of certain things that happen. You never lose your spiritual wealth. It's just more difficult for us physical creatures to appreciate in comparison to physical wealth. But as Christians, we know that what we didn't bring anything into the world, we can't take anything out. So there are ways that we can help condition our mind to detach from our connection with the physical world and our desire to be wealthy. Again, I think we all like to have material things and to be wealthy. But if we're not able to put that in proper perspective, whether we're wealthy or poor, and focus on the great message, we might lose our faith, or at least become depressed beyond what we should, especially if we worship Jah. So it's easier when we have others who help us. It's not easy when you're alone and you're going through these changes in life, whether rich or poor, and you have to deal with your circumstances. So developing this Christian association, I think, is a good thing for us as we face these trials in the world, difficulties just like Paul. And hopefully we'll have some who will be there for us when we need them. Maybe not all, right? Paul didn't have all. In fact, he only at this point had the Philippians. So, and while I know that changed at different times, there are still going to be situations where we feel like people aren't responding to us, or people aren't helping us, or we're all alone. That's an easy thing for Christians to start to dwell on or feel, because we're trying to do the things we believe Jah approves of, and there's just not a whole lot of people that we can do them with. But I think that will change, and really we only need one other person, right? That's what Jesus said. 2 or more are gathered, there I will be in their presence. So try to keep these things in perspective. Texts like what I just quoted from Jesus, texts like Philippians chapter 4, verse 12, I've known what it means to be poor, and I have known also what it means to be rich. Reflect on yourself. Think back to times when you had more than you have now, or maybe when you had less. The more you concentrated on the things that you knew you had to do in spite of those conditions, the easier it will be to transition out of them, or to if you have a lot of wealth, to have a balanced perspective on how to administer it. So these texts, I think, give us a good appreciation for the life and times of the early Christians. It wasn't all love and unity. They were trying to establish that, but just like today, they had difficulty. They had people who weren't on the same page, or who were just immature and had not yet come to a full knowledge of the Christ. But even if you do, you can still make mistakes like Peter, so we have to be careful. Try to associate yourselves with people who will build you up, encourage you, and if they're not going to do that, then do the best you can to help them and move forward, so that you can have an interchange of encouragement with others who are more prepared to be there for you when you need it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and post today's text. Let's put it up on Twitter and Facebook and give everyone something, hopefully, that they can look to, one or all of the verses in the text, to just remind yourself that we're part of a brotherhood that goes back a long way, brother and sisterhood. And they had to face many, if not more, of the same problems and difficulties that we face today, depending on where you live in the world. So we're never alone in that sense. And we have people today who are trying to do everything they can to praise Jah. They know it's the right thing to do. They know it's difficult, but they're going to do it anyway, like me. So I'm going to post this on Twitter, and then we'll put it up on Facebook. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to put up the great message later today all about Jesus, complementing the Saturday show and including a variety of images and photos that I think will accent the material well, give us something else that we can use to promote belief in Jesus and highlight the reasons why we believe he's God's son and a real historical person. So I enjoyed today's text. Now I'm ready to go. I was a little tired when I first got up, but as I started to get into the flow of the morning and get the day text all set up, I just, it makes you more awake, of course. And so I'm ready. I'm ready for a lot of praising Jah today, and I'll try to do my best in that regard. And if I can help you, let me know. I'll be around most of the day getting the great message video up online. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll be back tomorrow. We're working our way through Philippians. Colossians is next. So stay with me, and we'll continue through the rest of the New Testament and encourage each other with the things that we learn.